What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we had just talked about Nintendo and Dolphin kind of going at it, with Nintendo even blocking them from putting the program on Steam. Well, now we have a response from Nintendo around this, and well, you're going to see this one. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a big-time sale that is returning to PlayStation for 2023 that could give you your best shot at getting their large library of games on the subscription service. And we're also going to be discussing a new retro accessory that could really clean things up for the Xbox console, but at what cost? Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel. And we're going to start today with a bit of an update on the situation that was circulating the other day with Sony potentially moving to acquire CD Projekt Red. And as we had mentioned, it was kind of like this grapevine event that went from source to source to source and eventually ended up on social media, where it exploded to more than 500,000 views overall. But it does look like we have a bit more of a formal response from CD Projekt, and we can see this post up over on Twitter. This from one of the CD Projekt Red PR representatives, Ola Sandes, who says, yeah, we're not in such talks with Sony. And to follow up a bit more, during their fiscal report, we actually had like CEO and stuff at CD Projekt Red saying, we're not interested in being acquired at all. We want to remain independent. And they have a lot of projects that are currently in the works anyway. And I still don't really see how it would necessarily benefit Sony to acquire CD Projekt Red and all of that, when they're going to get the games anyway. Like, when the next Witcher game comes out, do you think they're skipping the PlayStation 5? Probably not. So in this case, it makes more sense for Sony to remain hands-off with CD Projekt Red and just kind of collect the royalties around all of that. So at least for now, no, it doesn't look like Sony's acquiring CD Projekt. Also, it looks like we have another event to look forward to, another showcase coming up here soon, and we can see this posted up over on Twitter. This from RGG Studios says, get ready for RGG Summit Summer 2023, June 15th, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. They say stay tuned for live stream details. Now, we are expecting probably at least two things here. There's Like a Dragon Gaiden. Remember, the Yakuza series has shifted over to what it's basically been called in Japan, Like a Dragon, just overall. So, Like a Dragon Gaiden, and then most likely Like a Dragon 8, of course, the follow-up to Like a Dragon 7, that being the turn-based RPG that I really enjoyed, right? So I'm curious what's next for the series. And then Like a Dragon Gaiden, to my understanding, is coming out this year, so that's one of the reasons we're expecting to see it here with that firm release date, and then probably a tease on what's next overall for the mainline series. So exciting stuff there for fans, of course, Like a Dragon, and I'll keep you guys posted as to what we get from this in a couple of weeks. Oh, and we are coming up on the release for Diablo 4. That, of course, is next week on June 6th, and I'm excited to pick this one up and check it out. I did enjoy Diablo 3. It just feels like that was a while ago, and since then, we had the speed bump that was Diablo Immortal. But we should be expecting review scores to go live today. We can see this posted up by Rod Ferguson, who says just 24 hours till Diablo 4 reviews start landing, and then 31 hours till preload begins. I believe there's also going to be an early access period and other things there building up to that June 6th official release. So review scores, I am curious on this one, because in the past we've seen Diablo games come out, and while the original Diablo was like 94 or something, they've kind of been sitting in the high 80s. I am curious if Diablo 4 will break back through again into the 90s. And by the way, that would continue to stack on some of these releases we've had for 2023. And one of the reasons that, I mean, if the second half of the year can be even half as good as what we've seen in the first half of the year, this could go down as one of the best years in gaming we've ever seen. But I'm wondering if they could break into the 90s. I'm kind of thinking right now like an 88 to an 89, but I wouldn't be shocked if they started showing up and averaged around a 91. So exciting stuff there right now for Diablo fans. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo versus Dolphin. Now, this is a story that's kind of been evolving over the last couple of days, and initially it sounded like Nintendo had issued a DMCA takedown. But as more information became available from the Dolphin team themselves, as they were even updating their website kind of live there, it turns out Nintendo cited the DMCA claims after Valve had contacted them first to kind of get an idea as to how Nintendo felt about Dolphin appearing on their marketplace. And after Nintendo pushed back, Valve decided to take it down based on their terms of service. But now we have a response from Nintendo, and it's kind of what I expected based on their own claims on their website as to how Nintendo feels around emulation. This came way of Kotaku, who did get the response, which we can see this posted up over on their website, where, quoting Nintendo, "Nintendo is committed to protecting the hard work and creativity of video game engineers and developers. This emulator illegally circumvents Nintendo's protection measures and runs illegal copies of games. Using illegal emulators or illegal copies of games harms development and ultimately stifles innovation. Nintendo respects the intellectual property rights of other companies and in turn expects others to do the same." So, the thing that's Dolphin has clearly messed up with here is they have those Wii common keys that Nintendo can point to and say, well, that flies in the face of what we know about with the DMCA, copywritten code. We need those pulled down. But they're also taking it and putting it alongside of illegal copies of games or just piracy. And that's kind of how Nintendo views all of this together, and probably how they would prefer to view emulators of their system is just illegal and it's piracy, right? The thing with this though is, and it's something that people run into a lot, what do we do if you don't sell us your games? Like if we want to play a game from the GameCube generation that's not available anywhere else, really, think of Paper Mario Thousand Year Door as an example. How do you play that without spending $120 to $130 on eBay, which is a secondhand seller that Nintendo gets nothing from that? You're kind of stuck, right? So in that case, people look around and go, well, if they're not going to sell me the game, I'm just going to download and emulate it. And I mean, for a while we look at Dolphin and it's just like a clean room reverse engineered emulator that Nintendo has really not touched or really mentioned or looked at all until now. And from Nintendo's point of view, and I think most of us expect this, they need to be aggressive with piracy and all that, right? Because they have to not only protect themselves on their platform, but really third-party partners who are basically like, hey, Nintendo, you got to do something about this, right? So we've seen examples of something like the PSP, which sold over 80 million units for the system, right? But the software sales weren't very good, and a lot of people point towards, people were just downloading the games and putting them on their system, which was hacked and blown wide open early on, and just continued to get updates throughout the life of that system. While the Switch had something similar happen, it hasn't affected the overall software sales, especially when it comes to first party, but I still think Nintendo looks at emulators like Yuzu, for example, a bit sideways, thinking, maybe there is a way we can get that pulled down. Well, at least until now, they haven't run into any way possible, but they have, of course, gone after different ROM websites that have used Nintendo's likenesses or places that were just outright selling ways to circumvent the hardware through mod chips. But one thing's for sure with Dolphin, they have to work out something with these Wii common keys, because while Nintendo hasn't officially gone after them yet, the fact that they are aware of all of this does make me wonder why they haven't at this point. And the only thing I can think of is it's the typical stalemate that we've seen for, what feels like decades now, and that's that no one wants to go to court over this because it's all existing in the gray area, and either side would face serious consequences or just be devastating to them if, say, the courts ruled in favor of emulators existing and being completely legal. Nintendo would not like that, and it'd be tough for them, right, if they saw that happen. But on the other side, it'd be devastating for the community who's been developing these emulators if the courts ruled in favor of Nintendo and deemed most of these emulators to be illegal, because then, hey, you know how Nintendo rolls, cease and desist for everyone, basically. So to me, looking at this overall response from Nintendo, very general terms, taking things like piracy and emulation, throwing it all into one bucket. But at this time, those Wii common keys existing in Dolphin, Nintendo's gonna look at that and say, yeah, this emulator is illegal and it's also playing illegal copies of games, so it's all illegal. And that's at least how they're viewing it and mentioning it now. So we'll see if anything else comes from this. I'm kind of thinking it's just going to end here, but who knows? As I mentioned before, Nintendo, they tend to be kind of petty, and they really like to go after these things until the absolute conclusion. So I guess we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Next up, let's talk about Sony and a big sale that'll be heading to the PlayStation 5 at the end of this week. And they do this every single year, and that's their Days of Play promotion. Last year, they had sales on all kinds of different accessories, digital software, as well as their subscription services. And that's probably the biggest thing that I would look at this point. But we can see this posted up over on PlayStation blog, where they say Days of Play 2023 will begin on June 2nd, 12:01 a.m., and it will run until June 12th at 11:59 p.m. So you have about 10 days there to kind of browse through, plan out some purchases if you're looking to do that. Now, the thing that they really have as the headliner is indeed PlayStation Plus memberships, and that's because they will be 25% off. That does include Essential, Extra, and Premium/Deluxe. So the Essential being $100 with 25% off, coming in at $75. I still think that's the one to get based on how much support and really just games have been added in over the last year or so. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff available day one. So that to me is the one to look at. I know Premium, Deluxe, and all that has the legacy titles from Sony, but they have just been dragging their feet. We still haven't seen an actual PS2 game go into the service, so that's still a situation where I would say pick up the Essential tier and then buy different games showing up on Premium kind of a la carte. Now, they do mention sales when it comes to their gear, as they say, or like the shirts and different apparel, but you will see a lot of sales on different accessories. So if you're looking for a second controller, or maybe you want to pick up the nice headsets that they sell, I would hold off until this time and see exactly what kind of deals they drop there. Or the games themselves, you should see a ton of different titles going on sale on their PlayStation Store, but you'll most likely see these sales matched on different retailers. Sometimes physically, but yeah, a lot of times you'll just see digital codes being sold all over the place. Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy. So keep an eye on that one as well. But definitely at the end of this week, I'll be taking a look to see what they have on sale and updating you guys most likely next week to see what we have to pick out from. Next up, let's talk about Alan Wake 2, which was probably one of the best reveals during the PlayStation Showcase, specifically for its release date, October 17th, but also the different gameplay elements, multiple characters. There's a lot going on here, and it seems like they've improved heavily, especially on the combat side from the first Alan Wake game. But there was one unfortunate bit of news, especially for people like me who like to buy your physical copies of games, and that's that it will be a digital-only release. They've cited a couple of different reasons, one being a lot of the player base has moved over to the digital side, and it's allowed them to get the pricing down to $50 on PC or $60 on consoles. But it looks like at least one publisher is trying to nudge Remedy in the direction of having a physical copy of this game, and this was a response we can see from THQ Nordic, who says, "We did the disc version of Alan Wake for PC back in the day." This in response to Shinobi mentioning the news here. "And just because one person or company does not love physical, there's plenty who still do. Give it some thought. We'd love to go at it again, full circle and all." So THQ Nordic, I guess, throwing their hat in the ring, seeing if they get a publishing deal for the physical copy of this game. And yeah, it's just kind of business, right? Like, hey, maybe we can get them to choose us as their publisher for that physical copy and all this. But it's still interesting to me that this has happened with something like Alan Wake 2, and I do wonder if this is going to become more and more common, especially in the next year or so, because typically it takes maybe one game to do something like this for other studios and publishers to kind of take notice and follow suit, especially if this ends up being a successful venture for Remedy. It's like, oh, well, we didn't really lose out much on sales, still sold millions of copies, and we didn't have to go through the headache of stocking these with overall logistics and moving them to brick and mortar stores. But I am hoping that there is a physical copy at some point. So would we get the whole double dip scenario where it's released digitally and then the following year physically? I guess it's possible, so keep an eye on that one, but I'm still excited for Alan Wake 2. I think it looks awesome, and again, that coming out right at the time that makes a lot of sense for kind of a more horror-based game like that, October 17th, just a couple of weeks before Halloween. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a new HDMI adapter that's been announced for the original Xbox, which you can use component cables for the original Xbox, and some games will provide 720p, and it actually looks pretty good still to this day through the original Xbox. However, many people would be using HDMI, not necessarily the 5 plugs for component. You could get different adapters and stuff, but then you're daisy chaining stuff, and some people just don't want to go through the hassle. They'd rather buy something that's plug and play easily installable there on the back, and then it runs to HDMI. Well, we do have an adapter like that that's been announced and will be coming out June 20th, and that's from Eon. They have done adapters for the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube, and you can see this one here. It does certainly have the Xbox theme. We do have some information on some of the additional features and the pricing, which we'll get to here in a second, but the obvious part here is, yes, it's very convenient. There's no modding required, no external power required, and it's mentioned that it provides a lagless overall experience going from the component to HD video output with 720p, 1080i. Both of those are compatible there. It has 2 HDMI video out ports. They say it's for simultaneous video streaming, so I guess you could have one Xbox in between 2 different monitors, and if you're doing a fighting game, you don't have to be shoulder to shoulder next to the TV, or if you're running a tournament, technically you could have one HDMI port running to the monitor in front of the competitors, and the other one maybe running into a projector that it makes obviously the picture much larger for a viewing audience. The thing that I think is actually kind of cool about this is on the back there are 3 Ethernet ports, so you can then plug in 3 different Xboxes to this, and it's basically a built-in router. Back in the day, we would of course have Ethernet cables running all over the place to a central router or switch, so we could play like Halo 1 or 2 or any of those kinds of games. So having that sort of built in is kind of a cool feature, but the only issue I have with this entire package is the price. It's $190, and okay, so the adapter for GameCube, I know for a while was like, what, $150? It's since gone on sale at times, down to even $100, and that felt expensive, but you would compare it to the GameCube component cables that were like $200, so people were like, okay, well, it's cheaper than that, and it's more convenient. I don't know, this one seems a bit over the top to me. I have an Xbox that I installed the HDMI modification internally to, and what I'll be doing is getting one of these and do a video comparing it to that video output, as well as just going over some of the features and functionality for it, but it's going to be hard to recommend, I'll tell you this, at $190. Unless you're, really enjoying your original Xbox, you have a big-time collection, and you like the convenience of just HDMI out maybe to a larger flat screen that you normally use. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, when a video game company no longer offers to sell games from their legacy systems, what do you do if you want to play it? 18% say look to buy it secondhand even if prices are high. Yeah, it's rough right now on eBay too. Some of those, I know it's some of those GameCube games, yeah, kind of pricey. 66% say I just emulated the game on PC or maybe some sort of other system, device, something like that. And then 16% say I wait or hope that a remaster eventually happens. I think it'll also depend on the pricing of the game, because maybe there's a very common title that you want to play. You have the system already. Maybe it's an original PlayStation or something, and you look online, okay, this game's $10. I'm just going to order it and I'll play it that way. But when you get into some of those pricey games that if they were available on the eShop, for example, it would be like a $20 purchase. Now it's $120. That's a tougher pill to swallow, especially now with what's going on with the 3DS. People are emulating the 3DS because Nintendo pulled the shop down. Like, what are you supposed to do then? Nintendo on their own website says to look around at secondhand stores like pawn shops. Maybe you'll get lucky there. So yeah, it's kind of hard to fault people when they want to buy the game. Nintendo or these other companies don't want to sell it to you, so you go out, you download it, and then you play it on your emulator. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Sickboy, says, Dolphin devs have made a really serious error here by hard-coding those keys into the Dolphin source. Those keys fall squarely under circumvention of copy protection, which is explicitly forbidden under the DMCA. Also concerning is how those keys ended up in a project which was meant to be a clean room implementation, and it cast doubt as to whether there might be Nintendo IP in Dolphin. Also, by trying to publish Dolphin on Steam, which is completely unnecessary, they have brought a significant amount of scrutiny. I have seen that concern brought up that, hey, they were kind of pushing things a bit here with that Steam release, and now Nintendo could be coming after them, which in turn could put a large spotlight on emulation in general, and all this could end up in the courtroom, and then it's like, ooh, one way or the other, someone's not going to be happy about this. And if it's the community with these emulators on the wrong end of it, ooh, it's not going to be great there. But I still think, in general, Nintendo themselves are unsure if they would win in court against something like a Dolphin emulator, provided those Wii common keys are removed and the whole thing's kind of reworked there. So it's certainly something to follow, but I kind of think this is it for it, but who knows, we'll see. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's Nintendo's response to the entire situation ongoing with Dolphin and Steam and getting blocked off of the platform there? And then also, what about Sony and their days of play sales coming up? And then the Xbox Eon adapter, HDMI out, but at $190. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.